catch up after the event. So I'm recording now. So my name's Louise and I work for the Refugee Council of Australia, and we have two amazing uh, presentations for roughly 10 minutes each, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end of that. So I'm going to start by introducing our first speaker, who is Nasrat Hamdi from the Afghan community in Christchurch. And a little bio there is in the chat. But Nasrat, over to you to give us your thoughts and ideas around how people who have been, you know, sort of come in the past can be a bridge to those who come in the future, but also to more established communities. Nasrat, to you, please.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you so much for facilitating this platform. So, Tina Kato, Tina Tato Katua, Kiara Koto. Hi to everyone. I just wanted to begin with a simple question. What makes a place feel like home? So for many of us, something we rarely think about it, but for a refugee arriving in a new country, home is not just a place, it's something that has to be rebuilt and often from nothing, from scratch. Although they would come with a lot of expertise and a lot of lived experienced. So so this is where the diaspora community play a crucial role. So they don't just provide support, they build bridges. So bridges between culture, system, and most importantly, between people. So today, I will talk about how diaspora organization, individuals, or community groups contribute to connecting refugee newcomers with local communities here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and mainly in Otatahi, Christchurch, where I live in South Island. So I will focus on three key examples. It's a huge topic, but I will just concise it in three examples that we practiced or has practiced in Otatahi, Christchurch. So it's a community response after the Christchurch Mosque shooting when happened on 2019 in Christchurch, and the Multicultural Advisory Group and the Migration Advisory Group within Red Cross and in kind of like national-wide Red Cross. So first, let's look at the moment of crisis because that's where strength of community become most visible in Otatahi. So after the 2019 Christchurch mosque shooting or attack happened, one of the darkest day of New Zealand, Aotearoa, and as well as a terrible attack, which has 49 individual become deceased or dead, and many people um, injured. So. So in after 2019 Christchurch mosque attack, diaspora communities stepped forward immediately. They didn't wait for formal system or official responses. They organized food, emotional support, trans translation services, not just language, but also the culture and safe spaces for giving families. It was really hard and tough time for the community and as well as to the wider community. But more than that, they acted as a cultural interpreters. So they helped local communities understand how to respond respectfully and meaningfully. And at the same time, they help affected families navigating the institutions and services and during and such a that traumatic time. So this matter because the trauma doesn't just affect individual. So as I said before, it affects the wider community and also it affects the trust. And in a community already by displacement and having the background or the past, and they have gone through the traumas, so the trust in system is not just automatic. It's not just systematic that they could trust and after going through all those traumas and again um, were in a place that they felt that they are safe, but it still happened, that incident. So in mosque attack, majority of the individual were migrants and former refugees. So, and even though within those small community, it was a different 40 ethnic groups. So it's quite diverse. So, and also the research has been done by Dr. Suleiman Khail, and I've added the link on not here on the Zoom, but I can add it maybe later here as well. So following the Christchurch attack, they highlighted that the engaging of community members directly helped to build trust. So that is really important, how the diaspora community played a crucial role and reduce barriers and ensure the support is culturally appropriate and effective. So what we see here is something deeper. So diaspora communities, they don't just support their own. They make connections possible where trust might and otherwise be fragile or absent. Sorry if I'm do if you have got any question or anything, you can pause me or stop me, or I can just go ahead. Great, thank you. So, and also this brings me to my second example, which is a multicultural advisory group in Utatahi, Christchurch, within Christchurch City Council. So in Christchurch City, so we have a 490,000 population, and it's growing, and as well as becoming more diverse. So this group was established to provide informed and impartial advice to this Christchurch City Council. So a lot of former refugees or a lot of individuals who already settled in the community. So they are from different communities and different backgrounds. They are part of this advisory panel. But this role goes far beyond simply giving advices. So it brings forward the voices, the concerns, the aspiration, the diverse communities, the newcomers' challenges. For instance, the bus routes or community engagements, the library, a lot of programs in the library to engage and close people together. So, and ensuring the decisions are not made just about the communities, but with those individuals or with the newcomers. It also raises awareness within the government and wider public about the realities different than the community faces. And importantly, it facilitates interactions, creating a space for people from different background and bridging gap between the farmer refugees or the migrant or the disparate communities with the local people, with the people of land as well. So in this way, it acts as a bridge, as a structural level, connecting communities with local government and ongoing meaningful way to support. So it's just not only for the people, but it's also beneficial to Christchurch City Council as well. So Christchurch City Council, by having such a group, is more visible within those communities. And now my third example is highlighting something equally important. Um, so the Migration Advisory Group within Red Cross. So Red Cross New Zealand has cover 9 regions to provide settlement services to the newcomers. So so the Migration Advisory Group within Red Cross is made up of former refugees or individual with a lived experience from different regions across Aotearoa, New Zealand. So so these people, it has 10 members. They come together and they connecting communities with the Red Cross. Red Cross, of course, the settlement service provider, and kind of like bringing the community challenges and issues or whatever they experience on the table to the board member of Red Cross, to the managers, to the directors, to these are the challenges and how we could sort it out. So they come together, identify the challenges, both small, minor, or major, that refugee communities facing. So sometimes these minor issues, but if ignored, they can grow and into major barriers to the settlement and well-being of newcomers. So what makes this group effective is not just that they rising the problems, but they bring grounded solutions and lived experience. So the research that has been done by Dr. Suleiman Khair in Christchurch after the mosque attack shows that involving community members or the former refugees um, directly help identify issues earlier and build trust and prevent small problems from becoming larger ones. So this is exactly also the Migration Advisory Group does within the Red Cross as well. If I'm running out of the time, please remind me. I'm trying to be great. Thank you. So, and also it creates direct connection between communities and organization, and ensuring the concerns are not only heard but understood and acted upon. And importantly, this advice has been welcomed and taken seriously by the all stakeholder organizations such as Christchurch City Council, Red Cross, because it's bridge only works both sides. So not just for the community and as well as for the service provider. So what do these examples tell us? They show that diaspora communities are not support network. They are leader, connector, and problem solver. They operate at multiple level from immediate issues in the time of crisis and to the formal advisory role within institutions. So they help prevent misunderstanding, build trust, and ensure refugee voices are not only heard, but included in decision makings as well. So I will return to my opinion question, what makes a place feel like home? So it's not just a services or policies. It's connection, it's understanding, it's knowing um, that someone sees you, hears you, and willing to stand beside you. So these diaspora communities for sure makes that possible. They don't just help people settle, but they also help people to feel them that they belong. Thank you, Nagamahi.
Thank you so much, Nasrat, and some really excellent examples. And I could see some nodding heads as well. I think there are many similar approaches in different contexts, but kind of articulating why they work and what's important about them is really useful, I think, for as a reminder, but also as encouragement. Thank you, Nasrat. We will go to our next speakers and then we'll have questions at the end. And just letting you know, we will finish this breakout 5 minutes before the end of the actual event. So we have another 15 minutes, roughly 16 minutes. So 10 minutes over to you, Emma. And if you could introduce yourself as well, and yeah, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Let me get my screen all shared here. Um, my name is Emma Hartman, and I am here representing the Colorado Refugee Speakers Bureau and just addressing our topic for today, which is building bridges, fostering unity, diaspora leaders, organizations as bridge builders. So the Colorado Refugee Speakers Bureau is the program that I'm going to be talking about today. And the mission of the Bureau is to create connection and understanding between refugees and the receiving community in order to build a more inclusive, vibrant, and cohesive Colorado and United States. And this program was created about 10 years ago to address a need in the community that was needing refugees and immigrants, diaspora leaders to go out and be able to share their own voices and their own stories with the community. And this need was seen both by the diaspora community and by service providers And so they came together and they created the Bureau, which trains speakers in ways to share their own personal story and to go out into the community and do all of the wonderful work. So I'm going to go over what the program looks like, the wonderful work that it's doing, and kind of the how we're accomplishing it here in Denver. And so first, I'm going to give a little bit of background, just who all the groups involved are. And I'm going to throw a lot of acronyms at you real quick, so no worries, you don't need to memorize them all. The first one is the Ethiopian Community Development Council, which is our national headquarter office. They're a multicultural resettlement organization headquartered in Washington, D.C. And then I work here at the African Community Center of Denver, which is our local branch office, providing resettlement and programmatic support. And then the Caro Refugee Speakers Bureau kind of lives under ACC right now. And it is a program that trains and connects refugee speakers through communities, through their own storytelling. And as a side, the way that the Bureau is managed is through a partnership with myself and another staff member from a local resettlement agency in Denver. So there's two of us. And then a staff member from our state refugee services program. And so in addition to that, there's the three of us managing kind of the admin side and the resettlement professional side of things. We have a member-led steering committee that also guides the vision for our work. And that's 4 members who are elected internally who help us just set our vision for what the Bureau does in the community. So it is a big group of people all coming together to work on this project. Next, I'll talk about how it works. And I'm going to use the word storytelling or speaking engagements a lot. And so this is kind of what that looks like in the work that we do. And so when we're recruiting these speakers in the Denver community, the first step that we do is to recruit a yearly cohort of speakers through our community networks. And these are diverse people from the community who are interested in going out and doing this work and telling their own personal stories. They then complete a 6-month training program, which is led by professional speaking coaches. So each cohort of speakers is trained on how to tell their own personal story, the things that make their story really impactful, drilling down to a moment that changed their lives, and how to present that to the community. And then the next part is sort of the graduation and sort of also the first step into doing this, and that is presenting at the World Refugee Day Showcase. And that is June 20th every year. And this is the first time our speakers present their personal stories to an audience. And so they get up there on stage and they're able to tell their story, how they've developed it over the past 6 months for the first time to an audience of community members. And then after that, they are kind of part of our group of speakers who make up the Bureau and are then eligible to take on speaking engagements in the community. And because our group has been active for about 10 years, we have a wonderful cohort of almost 50 speakers, and they represent 20 different countries, and they go out into the community and are able to take on all of these different speaking engagements and share their own stories. So these are a couple of the main pillars of what guide our work as the Bureau. And the first one, of course, is centering that lived experiences to provide our speakers with dignity and their authentic voice, their own individuality. And it's, of course, a place where we respect perspectives and want voices to be heard. It's also a place where we build support. So all of our cohorts and all of our Bureau members are able to lean on each other to create cross-cultural understanding and just really build that community all together. I'm also going to talk a lot about the partnerships that we have. And this is really the way that the Bureau acts in the community and the connections that we make, the way that we build bridges, the way that we create that unity we've been talking about all day. And we're really lucky that we've created about 70 different partnerships. And that's from sectors like professional networks, faith-based organization, government groups. And those are places either we've partnered with them or they've hired one of our speakers to do a speaking engagement. And then we're connected with them and a partner with them. And then the last one is when we're talking about speaking engagements, it's kind of a broad concept, but it really can look like a ton of different things. So sometimes a speaking engagement will look like a keynote presentation. Sometimes it will look like a classroom presentation to elementary schoolers or a classroom presentation to college students. It can also be organizational sessions talking about DEI principles and inclusion and cultural humility. It can also be panels or public dialogue. It kind of ranges depending on what our organizations are looking for and what our speakers are interested and equipped to do. And then here's where I really wanted to kind of drill down into the practices that are making this work in the community, the things that we are doing. And the first one that I wanted to touch on is just the work our speakers do to shift narratives. And so I wanted to give a couple of examples of who these people are and what they're doing. So the first one here is Oliver, and he's a really wonderful example of a storyteller who uses his own story and his own journey to really humanize that experience through the way that he tells his story. And I've been told so many times that Oliver is really, really wonderful with kids, and he has a way of just sharing his own story that just like locks kids in. They really understand what's going on. They build a lot of empathy. And so he's a wonderful example of doing that in the community. And then the next person here is Nin, and she's a person who really is a relationship builder. And so she's able to go out and foster connections, both between the diaspora and local welcoming communities and her peers, and to really talk about those misconceptions about immigrants and to give a perspective of what immigration really looks like. She came here as a kid. What was that like? Rebuilding her family's life in Denver. And one of the questions that I wanted to address was, what does this look like when it's working really well? And when it's working well, it's not just informing communities. It's not just informing the classroom of students, but it's actually transforming the understanding and shifting how people see refugees and how people see their new neighbors. And the second piece is just activating that advocacy. So our next speaker here is Sabe, and she's somebody that's a trusted messenger. She's able to go out and, like we've talked about, reduce fear, to correct misinformation, and to really address stigma that happens, especially now in a time where there's so much misinformation and polarization. And she's able to talk with her credible lived experience and able to go into communities and address that and to activate people's sense of advocacy. And then Milad here, he's actually one of the 4 members of that steering committee I was talking about. So he's a leader within this group and a community advocate. He's able to really amplify newcomer voices, especially in places where decisions are being made, where policies are being shaped, where inclusion is needed. And that is, like this says, when it works, it's not that the impact just stays in that room, but it's actually leading to ongoing behavior change, to policy, to developing wide-ranged partnerships, which is something we're focusing on now, is just engaging more partners than ever and creating ongoing advocacy. There are, of course, challenges that come with this work. And the first one is just that narrative and audience barrier that we see, the misinformation that I was talking about. And we strengthen that just by the work that the Bureau does, which is centering lived experience, especially early on, expanding community education, and just creating a space for people to talk and people to hear and reflect on the things that they've heard and learn from the things that they've heard. The next challenge was just be speaker well-being and safety, and that's one of the reasons why the Bureau was created, was to address that this is emotional labor, that this requires a lot of vulnerability. A lot of our speakers do continue to be in ongoing or precarious legal situations. And so it's not something that just anybody can do, that a resettlement agency can just send somebody to do. It does actually take trauma-informed practices. Speaking is a skill that speakers have to develop. And we want to promote those respectful norms and how people go out into the community and do this and create a system for doing that. And then the last one is just sustainability and representation. So like everything in refugee resettlement, funding is so limited. And our speakers require compensation. That's a foundation of the Bureau that we really stand on, is that our speakers all receive an honorarium, a stipend for this work. They're not just doing it for free. They're being recognized for their skills and their time. And investing in groups like this with sustainable funding, ensuring fair pay to our speakers, and making sure that this is able to continue to practice that ethical storytelling and make sure that our diaspora leaders are able to go out into the community and build those bridges is really, really important to us. And I feel like the Bureau is something I could talk about for like an hour, but this feels like the really nuts and bolts of the group. The most wonderful part is we have so many speakers representing so many wonderful communities, so many leaders in their own diaspora who are able to go out and shape the communities and build those partnerships. and to really make a difference in all of these things that we're talking about and strengthen those bridges. So that's my little overview for the moment. And I'd love to connect on this. Here is our email, my personal email, and our social media if anybody's interested. And thank you so much for letting me present.
Thank you so much, Emma. It's really great. I put a little link in the chat because we have a very similar program at the Refugee Council. I feel like my colleagues would love to talk to you about some of those challenges, which are very similar in our Refugee Stories for Change initiative, which has also been going for about 10 years. We have only 2.5 minutes, so I'm just wondering if anyone has a burning question. Yes, community service. If you're able to put your
Hi, sorry.
Yeah.
My name is actually Kerry Woodrow, and I'm from Multicultural Australia here in Queensland, Australia. I guess my question goes to both of those presentations. Thank you so much for presenting the wonderful work that you're doing in your spaces. And it's that piece around here in Multicultural Australia with some of our partner organisations. We've been working with leaders and respected elders in cultural communities around domestic and family violence in really community-led approaches. And one of the things that's really central to us is the thing that is and community. It's about communities wanting to be partners and allies in addressing domestic and family violence, and really leaning into cultural strengths rather than culture as blame or culture, blaming culture or culture as an excuse, but leaning into protective factors. And one of the things that we're really recognizing is that is that it's not only about the fact that our mainstream services have not been responsive to cultural communities, but that we have things to learn from cultural communities about how we could be doing better in this space. And I guess my question is, how do we continue to shift that narrative from it's important to hear from these voices because often they're excluded and marginalised and not responded to appropriately, to it's important to listen to these voices because we have something to learn about how we could be doing things better. And I guess that leans into both of those spaces. It's not just about hearing those stories because of the challenges and marginalisation that they face, that it's really important to highlight, but that it's important to be hearing these voices because we have the opportunity to learn and be better at what we do in general. And that piece around for that second piece about remunerating and recognising the skill that people bring, how do we shift that idea that we'll pay for designers, we'll pay for architects, we'll pay for that expertise, but we don't. It's really hard to get people to understand that cultural, community, lived experience, expertise is an expertise that needs investment, that is worth investing in, and that community leaders and respected elders bring that. So how do we continue to shift those narratives and those dynamics to really bring that expertise
Sorry,
into the
we're
foreground?
just going to end now. We've got time is up. Yes. I think we have to close, unfortunately. It's hopefully we'll be able to continue these conversations and you have contact details. But I loved your comments as well. I think everyone was thumbs up about that. And I encourage you. Oh, we've got 100 seconds. Sorry. Let me just say we have 100 seconds so we can continue a little bit. Yeah, just to say that this idea of shifting, not just hearing from, but shifting and coming together is one that you could hear, Nasrat, you talking about that. How did the community step up in these different spaces, and also the impact of your Speakers Bureau and I don't know if you have any reflections, either of you, on that question of how do you go from just speaking, but to actually shifting some ideas. Is it just about opening the door?
I could just say in terms of health, because my more area is in health. So as a former refugee, as a someone understand the culture and as well as the community, and as well as my academic or my area as well. So what I'm doing is expertise is so important alongside knowing the culture, alongside knowing the community as well. So I'm delivering lectures on refugee health. So by doing this, is I'm not just telling the stories. I'm not just addressing the cultural perspective, and also coming up with the with the health and with the research based and evidence based talks that how we could solve the issue. So I would say more. So experience is so important to find people having experience to be able to broadly and comprehensively